What's going on, everyone? Welcome back. Today, we're going to be talking our Week 2 fantasy football running back starts and sits for every single matchup, so make sure to tune in. If you enjoy, hit that like button, subscribe, give us a follow on Twitter at AllDayPigskin to continue interacting with us there. Let us hear in the comment section, do you agree, disagree, along with any other questions you guys might have. We'll do our best to answer them all, but with that being said, let's get right into it. Before getting into our breakdown, I want to highlight the sponsor of today's video, OddsJam. OddsJam continues to be the place that I use for all of my sports betting research, from the NFL, NBA, MLB, to daily fantasy and everything in between. But don't just take my word for it. Let me show you firsthand all the amazing tools OddsJam has to offer. Starting with their positive EV tool, which identifies situations where a single sportsbook has mispriced their line compared to the rest of the market. They're basically willing to pay a lot more so that you bet with them compared to the other sportsbook. At the end of the day, you're getting the best odds, essentially a mathematical edge and guaranteed money in the long run. But also available is OddsJam's arbitrage tool, which shows situations where the market is so mispriced that you can bet on both sides and guarantee a risk-free return. OddsJam's calculators show you exactly how much you have to bet on the over and under and what the respective guaranteed risk-free return would be. There's also OddsJam's Sportsbook tool, which consolidates all available market info, over 200 sportsbooks, and provides updates in real time and allows you to see line movement. But my personal favorite is their Fantasy Optimizer tool, which is great for those using PrizePicks, Underdogs, or other daily fantasy sites, as you get to see discrepancies between all of these sportsbooks. Imagine, PrizePicks has a Patrick Mahomes line at 200.5 passing yards, and all other books like FanDuel and Underdog have this line at 230 passing yards. Well, getting the over 200.5 on PrizePicks would be an absolute steal. Guess what? OddsJam does that for you. And the good news is, if you sign up today and use our code PIGSKIN, check the link and promo code in the description of this video, you will get 25% off your first month. OddsJam also has a 7-day free trial, so you get to try before you buy. So don't waste any more time and sign up for OddsJam using our code PIGSKIN today. And we kick off Week 2 with the Vikings at the Eagles on Thursday. Two high-octane offenses, so you might be surprised to see all the top running backs here listed as sits, but hear me out. We start with Madison for the Vikings. Now, last week we had him as a sit versus a stingy Buccaneers defense. And for the most part, we were right. I mean, he needed a receiving touchdown to salvage his day. And I think you've got a very similar matchup here versus the Eagles, stingy up front. And the Eagles can pull away from you. If that happens, the Vikings are going to have to abandon their run. Basically, I don't want to rely on Madison's receiving prowess and touchdown upside in that category in order for him to be fantasy viable. Sure, I still believe in Madison. Don't get me wrong. I just think these first two games of the season are versus very tough opponents. That's why I'm trying to analyze it from that perspective. He is a sit for me. For the Eagles, Kenneth Gainwell and DeAndre Swift as sits. Hell, Rashawn Penny was inactive this last week, so much for all those names there. DeAndre Swift barely played, so you might be saying, well, Kenneth Gainwell was the huge winner, got a ton of opportunities. Why is he not a start for you? I think this is my thought process here. I don't want to overreact to Week 1 too much. The Eagles have been known to switch things up with their running back position. And while I do think probably more likely than not, okay, Kenneth Gainwell definitely worth rostering. I want to see him do it 2 weeks in a row. And then we can have a conversation about Kenneth Gainwell truly being the RB1 for the Philadelphia Eagles. In the meantime, I don't want to base it off of just 1 week. It's the Eagles. They take turns, especially at the running back position. So for that reason, I would rather sit Gainwell and Swift. Then Ravens at the Bengals. Only one guy I want to start here, that is Joe Mixon. Now, unfortunately for the Bengals, this last week wasn't all that great. They were down. That entire offense just didn't play well, starting with Joe Burrow. But the good news is I think that it will rebound versus the Baltimore Ravens. And they're not going to be held down offensively like they were versus the Browns every single week. To me, Joe Mixon, top 15 running back on the week. For the Ravens, tough break for them. J.K. Dobbins was having a very nice day, then Achilles injury, done for the season. So that leaves Gus Edwards and Justice Hill. And honestly, I think this is a situation that you want to avoid now. I think that neither of these guys are anything extremely special. Sure, Justice Hill had the 2 touchdowns, but I think it's going to be a running back by committee. neither one of these guys is going to out-touch the other by 10 plus carries. Lamar Jackson's still there. Melvin Gordon's getting elevated to the roster. So to me, both these guys, Edwards and Justice Hill, are, low end, high end running back 3, something like that. And that might even be pushing it. So for me, without Dobbins, the backfield for the Ravens, completely a sit. Then Seahawks at the Lions. I actually don't mind this matchup here as far as the running backs are concerned. For Seattle, Kenneth Walker emerged as the guy, so much for all that Charbonnet talk. And he got the carries, he got the opportunities. I like to see that. Yes, it was a tough outing versus the Rams, but you like to see what we got from Kenneth Walker. I will take a chance on him. To me, he is a low to mid-level running back 2. For the Lions, David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs. I think this is the type of game where you can see a decent amount of points. Now, yes, Montgomery 3-1 outrushed Jahmyr Gibbs, but you saw the potential with Gibbs. Now, let me just say this. I'm only starting Gibbs in PPR formats. If we're talking standard, I am benching him. I think in PPR right now, he's still not getting enough carries. He is going to be touchdown dependent, but you're hoping for 4 to 6 receptions per game. The Seahawks didn't look great either. So that's it from that perspective. I do think he will be a little bit touchdown or bust type of deal. To me, he's going to be somebody that comes on as the season progresses, and we've said that before. That's why the draft capital didn't make sense to begin with. So right now, Montgomery is the preferred overall play, but I don't think there's a true RB1 right now, at least, on this team for fantasy purposes. Then we go to the Colts at the Texans. Deion Jackson here, while Jonathan Taylor remains out, to me is the guy. Yes, Zach Moss might return. If that is the case, then we will reevaluate then. But Deion Jackson got the bulk of opportunities. Unfortunately, it was the type of game where the Colts kind of had to abandon the run. And Anthony Richardson also, contributed on the ground. But here versus the Texans, they don't scare me at all. So I would start Deion Jackson. And then for the Texans, I'll start Dameon Pierce. Yes, I know Devin Singletary was involved a little bit, but Pierce is the better overall running back. If Zach Moss doesn't play here for the Colts, I actually like Deion Jackson the most out of this matchup. But overall, I think we're looking at, low to mid-level running back 2 performances from all these guys here. Moving on, Bears at the Buccaneers. Khalil Herbert, I'm tentatively starting, but only in PPR formats if you're desperate, because I think it's going to be a situation very similar to last week. And I think the Buccaneers, again, like I said before, stingy defense up front. Herbert, PPR. You're hoping for 4 to 5 receptions a game. We saw Bears offensively. They're not going to throw the football down the field. So Herbert, those dink and dump passes from Justin Fields, that's what you're praying for. I am not starting Deonta Foreman and Roschon Johnson at all. You could argue this Bears offense, other than Khalil Herbert and Justin Fields offensively running the football, just can't be trusted. For the Buccaneers, I think this is a really nice opportunity for Rachaad White to have a bounce-back game. We saw what Aaron Jones did versus the Bears. I think Rachaad White can do something similar. So to me, he is the much preferred option. Khalil Herbert is definitely kind of a reach here. Dart throw if you're desperate. Only in PPR formats. I think White has the upside to be in the RB1 conversation this week. Moving on, Chiefs at the Jaguars. I'm only interested in Travis Etienne. Sure, Tank Bigsby had a touchdown this last week, but I wouldn't just try and find the touchdown producers at the running back position. That's not how it's done. Etienne got many more opportunities. He's the better overall guy. I think he can be a top 12 running back in the week. For the Chiefs, look, they're just not an offense with a high upside running back. It's plain and simple. Pacheco is a guy that's just there. He's just a guy, right? He'll have a couple decent weeks, but Clyde Edwards-Helaire is also there. Nobody here on this Chiefs running back squad is absolutely insane. I would rather sit both of them. I think this is going to be a big game for, the potential Travis Kelce returns, so I'm sitting the rushers for the Chiefs. Then Packers at the Falcons. Look, I'll start Aaron Jones if he plays, but I think it's going to be a stretch here. Got injured late in that game versus the Bears. Looked like he pulled something, never returned. So if he plays, he is the preferred option. Then you sit A.J. Dillon. But without Aaron Jones, A.J. Dillon, like we've said before, he is one of the top handcuffs in fantasy football. He becomes a must-start to me, and I think can be a mid to high-end running back too for the Falcons, Bijan, and Tyler Algier. I think this is the point right now, to continue to start Tyler Algier, because as the season progresses, Bijan Robinson will completely take over this backfield. He's kind of that pass-catching guy at the running back position. I mean, he's still very close to Algier in terms of rushing attempts, but maybe Algier getting boosted a little bit because of red zone opportunities. The Packers defense doesn't scare me too much. Bijan Robinson, to me, is in the RB1 conversation. Tyler Algier, more of a standard play and is going to be touchdown dependent. Afterwards, Raiders at the Bills. I will start Josh Jacobs. Yes, it was a tough outing versus the Broncos, but the opportunities were there. I think that he will bounce back for the Bills. At the time of this recording, they have yet to play, but unless anything crazy happens, I'm still a believer of James Cook. I think he's going to have a decent opportunity, and I think he's going to be a solid low to mid-level running back too. Then Chargers at the Titans, great game for running backs. Austin Eckler, sensational. Derrick Henry, I think he's going to have a decent game here as well. And now, yes, Josh Kelly surprisingly saw a lot of opportunities this last week for the Chargers, but I don't anticipate that happening every single week. So for that reason, I'm going to go ahead and sit Josh Kelly. If it becomes a trend, then we can have a conversation. Afterwards, 49ers at the Rams. To me, pretty simple. Christian McCaffrey, no-brainer, top 3 guy. It's going to be the case as long as he's healthy all season long. And then Elijah Mitchell just didn't get the opportunities, so pretty much a handcuff. For the Rams, Cam Akers, Kyron Williams both had decent moments this last week, but versus this 49ers defense, I don't like the opportunities, especially in what seemed to be somewhat of equal opportunity in that backfield. I'm steering away from the Rams running backs here. I just hate the matchup. Then Giants at the Cardinals. I'll start both these guys, Saquon and James Conner. Barkley was just in an awful game script this last week versus the Cowboys. I mean, for God's sakes, 40-0, right? So it's going to be a different story here. Cardinals, I still think one of the worst teams in football, so Barkley should have a big bounce-back game. I anticipate top 12 upside. James Conner, the Giants don't scare me. You know, we saw the pass-catching upside, the high floor. He's not going to wow you on the ground in terms of like 100-plus rushing yards, but I would still start him as a solid running back too. Moving on, Jets at the Cowboys. I'm only really interested in Tony Pollard here. He was great in week 1. I think he will continue that trend. So to me, he's a top 10 running back for the Jets. Again, they still haven't played, but unless something crazy happens, Breece Hall and Dalvin Cook are both sits for me. I just think it's going to be too much vulturing one of the other. Then Commanders at the Broncos. I'm sitting everyone here. I think the Broncos are a stingy defense, so I'm not sure that Brian Robinson is going to have the same success he had last week versus the Cardinals. Antonio Gibson was a non-factor. So for what it's worth, I think in a more favorable matchup, I would be starting Brian Robinson. So he's going to be a nice little diamond in the rough. For the Broncos, Javonte Williams, Samaje Perine. It's a running back by committee. I don't love it. So for that reason, I'm going to sit both of them. Afterwards, Dolphins at the Patriots. I will start Raheem Mostert. He's the running back I'm most excited for in this game, as crazy as that sounds. With the current injuries for the Dolphins, I think he's a low-end to mid-level running back too for the Patriots. I'm only starting Ramondre Stevenson if it's a PPR format. Otherwise, Zeke took too many opportunities away, and I think Ramondre Stevenson could be a little bit of a disappointment this season outside of PPR formats and in general. And if this thing is a situation where the Dolphins pull away from the Patriots, it could get ugly. Ezekiel Elliott he's going to be a red zone guy. He's the backup in that situation, but he's still getting some work. However, he's still a sit. What you're praying for, Stevenson just gets a ton of pass-catching opportunities, but that's tough to guarantee. So I will start him, but I don't think he's in the RB1 conversation. Then Saints at the Panthers. I'll start Jamal Williams. All the opportunities are there. The Falcons just gashed the Panthers on the ground. I think Williams will have a solid day. To me, he's a mid-level running back too. Miles Sanders, he looked like the best running back on the team, like I said before, and I will start him here. I think that he's going to be another mid to high-end running back too on the week. And then finally, Browns at the Steelers. I'm only interested in starting Nick Chubb. Jerome Ford got some opportunities. I think he's a great handcuff, but Nick Chubb is the guy here. Otherwise, Najee Harris, Jaylen Warren looked no bueno. Najee Harris splitting carries with Jaylen Warren. The Steelers didn't look good offensively. I don't like them versus the Browns here. They are both sits for me. But with that, we wrap up our Week 2 fantasy football running back starts and sits for every single matchup. If you guys enjoyed, hit that like button, subscribe, give us a follow on Twitter at AllDayPigskin to continue interacting with us there. And in the meantime, we'll see you guys in future videos.